The crystal glass chimed against the silver spoon, silencing the room, instantly. We were in a private dining suite in Boston, surrounded by walls of cold glass that reflected the city lights like captured stars. My father, Robert, stood up, beaming at my sister, Ashley. He didn't look at me. He never looked at me. He raised his glass of vintage champagne and said, loud enough for the waiters to hear, to Ashley, to the only one of my children who truly understands the meaning of ambition and legacy. The room erupted in applause. They clapped for the golden child. They clapped for the future IPO. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I simply took a sip of water, placed my napkin on the table, and walked out the door while they were still cheering. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just the black sheep. I was a ghost. Have you ever been in a room full of family but felt completely invisible? If you know that feeling, drop a hand wave emoji in the comments, so I know I'm not alone. To my family, silence was a failure. It meant you weren't pitching. You weren't networking. And you certainly weren't disrupting an industry. But in my world, silence is the most expensive commodity there is. My workshop in Burlington, Vermont, is everything my parents' penthouse in Boston is not. It smells of aged maple, spirit varnish, and dust that has settled over 300 years. There are no glass walls here, just stone, timber, and the quiet hum of a dehumidifier protecting instruments worth more than most people's homes. I'm a luthier. I restaurare violins, violas, and cellos. When a Stradivarius develops a hairline fracture, or a Guarneri loses its voice, they don't send it to a factory. They send it to me. I spend my days with a magnifying glass and a chisel, shaving off wood thinner than a breath. It's slow, it's methodical, and it requires a kind of patience that would make my sister, Ashley, break out in hives. To my father, Robert, and my mother, Linda, my career was a cute little hobby, a quaint craftsman phase I would eventually grow out of before getting a real job. They didn't understand that while Ashley was burning through venture capital funding like jet fuel, I was building equity in history. But I didn't choose this solitude by accident. I was trained for it. There is a term psychologists use for kids like me, the glass child. When you grow up with a sibling who demands 100% of the oxygen in the room, you learn very quickly how to breathe without making a sound. Ashley was always the crisis or the miracle. She was either failing math and needing a tutor, or founding a startup and needing seed money. She was high maintenance, high volume, and high stakes. My parents were constantly exhausted by her, consumed by her orbit. So, I made a decision when I was 7 years old. I decided to be transparent. I became the child who didn't need help with homework, the one who didn't scrape her knees, didn't lose her retainer, and didn't ask for money. I thought if I was perfect, if I required absolutely zero maintenance, they would finally have the energy to love me. I was wrong. They didn't love me for being easy. They just forgot I was there. I remember the day I got accepted into the top luthier school in Cremona, Italy. I came downstairs, letter in hand, heart pounding. I walked into the kitchen, ready to share the news. But my mother was already on the phone, pacing back and forth. Ashley had crashed her car. Again. My father was shouting at an insurance agent in the other room. I stood there by the refrigerator for 10 minutes, holding the paper that defined my future. Neither of them even looked up. So, I folded the letter, put it in my pocket, and made my own coffee. I never told them. I just packed my bags and left. 2 months later, they assumed I was drifting. They told their friends I was finding myself in Europe. A polite way of saying I was unemployed. They didn't know I was apprenticing under the finest masters in the world. They didn't know I was learning to identify a forgery by the pattern of the grain or the smell of the glue. They saw a daughter who had opted out of the race. I saw a woman who had finally stopped running for a trophy that didn't exist. For 10 years, I let them believe what they wanted. I let them think my beat-up Volvo was a sign of struggle, not a choice. I let them think my silence was submission. But they forgot one thing about silence. It's not empty. It's full of answers. And while they were busy shouting about their legacy, I was quietly meticulously building my own. I just didn't realize that eventually, the noise of their world was going to come crashing through my front door, demanding to be saved. It had been 6 months since I walked out of that dinner in Boston. And in that time, my phone hadn't rung once. No apology. No check-in. Just radio silence until the obligatory calendar invite for Thanksgiving arrived in my inbox. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. Attendance mandatory. 2:00 p.m. The estate. I pulled my 10-year-old Volvo station wagon into the circular driveway of my parents' home in Connecticut. It looked ridiculous, parked next to my father's S-Class Mercedes and Ashley's brand new Porsche Cayenne. My car was covered in road salt and filled with tools. To a rolling testament to a life they considered a failure. I sat in the driver's seat for a full minute, watching the house. It was a sprawling colonial revival, manicured within an inch of its life. From the outside, it looked perfect. But I know better than anyone that rot always starts from the inside out. I took a breath, steeled my nerves, and walked to the front door. I didn't even have to knock. My mother, Linda, opened it before my hand touched the brass knocker. She wasn't smiling. She was wearing a cashmere sweater that cost more than my entire tool collection. And she looked stressed. "You're late," she said, turning her back on me immediately. "Samantha. Thank God. The coat check closet is a disaster. The hangers are all tangled. Can you fix it before the rest of the guests arrive? And please, move that car around the back. We don't want it cluttering the front photos." "Hello to you two." "Mom." I didn't argue. I didn't say, "It's good to see you." Or, "Happy Thanksgiving." I just did what I was told. I moved the car to the service entrance and spent 20 minutes untangling hangers in the coat closet. It was the perfect metaphor for my role in this family. I wasn't a guest. I was the staff member they couldn't fire because we shared DNA. When I finally walked into the living room, the atmosphere was brittle. Usually, Thanksgiving is the Ashley show. She would hold court by the fireplace, recounting her latest TED Talk or her upcoming feature in Forbes, while my parents nodded along like bobbleheads. But today, the air was different. It was heavy. Ashley was standing by the window, and she looked terrible. Her skin was pale, almost gray, and she was vibrating with a manic energy that made me uncomfortable just watching her. She wasn't holding a glass of wine. She was gripping her phone so hard, her knuckles were white. Every few seconds, she would swipe the screen, read something, and then look around the room with wide, terrified eyes. "Is she okay?" I asked quietly. Standing next to my father near the bar, Robert poured himself a scotch. "Neat." He didn't look at me. "She's just under a lot of pressure. Samantha. High-level stress. Something you wouldn't understand." "Right," I said, my voice flat, because fixing a 300-year-old instrument that can shatter if you breathe on it wrong is basically napping. He ignored me. "She's closing a major round of funding. It's a delicate time. Just stay out of her way today. Don't bore her with your little wood projects." I looked back at Ashley. I've spent my life studying tension. I know exactly what happens when you apply too much pressure to a structure that isn't built to hold it. Wood warps. Glue joints snap. Varnish cracks. Watching my sister pace back and forth, ignoring the hors d'oeuvre, I recognized the signs immediately. This wasn't the stress of success. This was the panic of a collapse. "Where's Jason?" I asked, realizing her husband wasn't hovering by her side like usual. "Business trip," my mother chimed in, walking past with a tray of crystal glasses. "Now, Samantha, stop asking questions and help me set the table. One of the chairs in the dining room is wobbly. Can you look at it? You're handy with that sort of thing." I almost laughed. I restore instruments for the London Symphony Orchestra, and my mother wanted me to fix a dining chair. But I nodded. "Sure, Mom." I knelt under the mahogany table, tightening a loose screw with a pocket knife I kept on my keychain. From down there, all I could see were their shoes. My father's polished Oxfords, pacing, my mother's heels, clicking anxiously, and Ashley's designer boots, tapping a frantic rhythm against the hardwood floor. Tap, tap, tap. They thought I was beneath them. Literally and figuratively. They thought I was the safe, boring, invisible daughter who could be ordered to fix the furniture, while the real adults discussed the world. But they forgot that when you're invisible, you see everything. And from where I was kneeling, the foundation of this family looked ready to give way. Dinner was served in the formal dining room. My mother had set out the good china. The stuff we weren't allowed to touch growing up. The turkey was dry. The conversation drier. My father droned on about the market. About interest rates. About positioning. Ashley barely touched her food. She just kept staring at her phone, which was sitting face down on the table next to her wine glass. Ashley. Darling. Eat something. My mother cooed. You're wasting away. I'm not hungry. Ashley snapped. And her voice tight. My battery died. Does anyone have a charger? I think there's one in the kitchen. I offered. I don't want to go to the kitchen, she said, extending her hand across the table toward me. Give me your phone. I need to check the aftermarket ticker for TechStream. He hesitated. My phone was in my pocket. Silent. It held the only secret I had ever kept from them. Use Dad's. Dad's font size is set to billboard. She sneered. Just give me yours. Samantha. God. Why do you have to be so difficult about everything? I pulled my phone out. I unlocked it. I handed it to her. It was a calculated risk. I assumed she would just open the browser. I forgot about the notification settings. I forgot that sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Ashley grabbed the device. Her manicured nails clicking against the screen. She tapped the browser icon. And then, right as she was about to type, a banner notification dropped down from the top of the screen. It was green. It was bright. And it stayed there for a solid 4 seconds. Private Client Services Wire Transfer. Received $28. Sube. Ling ling ling. 00. Sale of the Guarneri and Bitcoin liquidation complete. Ashley froze. Her eyes didn't just widen, they dilated. She blinked. Once. Twice. Like she was trying to clear a hallucination. Then she started to laugh. A high, brittle sound that bounced off the walls. What is this? She looked up at me, holding the phone out like it was a dirty tissue. Is this a game? Do you have some kind of fake bank app on here? Let me see. My father demanded, reaching over and snatching the phone from her hand. He adjusted his glasses, squinting at the screen. He read the notification. He read it again. Then he looked at me. And for the first time in my life, I saw him actually see me. $28 million. He whispered. My mother dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the china. What, Robert? What did you say? It says a wire transfer was received. My father said, his voice trembling slightly. 28,400,000. He looked up at me, his face pale. Samantha, is this real? I reached across the table and gently took the phone back from his shaking hand. I slipped it into my pocket. It's not a glitch, I said calmly. And it's not a game. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was a vacuum. It sucked the air right out of the room. Ashley was staring at me with her mouth open. My mother looked like she was about to faint. And my father looked at me not with pride, but with a sudden, terrifying hunger. Where? Ashley stammered. How? You fix violins. You live in a shed in Vermont. How do you have $28 million? I restore history. I corrected her. And I made some very good investments a long time ago. Investments I didn't feel the need to broadcast. You hid this, my mother whispered, clutching her pearls. You let us think you were? Struggling. You let us worry about you. You didn't worry about me? Mom, I said, cutting through her performance. You pitied me. There's a difference. Ashley stood up so fast her chair tipped over backward, crashing onto the floor. This isn't fair, she screamed, her face flushing red. I have been killing myself. I have been working 80-hour weeks. I am building an empire. And you? You just stumble into a fortune. Is it even legal? Did you steal it? Sight down. Ashley. I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it had an edge I'd never used with them before. It's perfectly legal. And unlike your company, my assets are liquid. That was the wrong thing to say. Or maybe it was the exact right thing. Because the moment the word liquid left my mouth, the energy in the room shifted. The shock evaporated. The hunger took over. They weren't looking at their daughter or their sister anymore. They were looking at a lifeline. And I knew, with a sinking feeling in my gut, that dinner was over. The hunt had begun. We moved to the living room. But nobody sat down. It felt less like a family gathering and more like a tribunal. My father poured himself another drink. His hand shaking so badly, the crystal decanter clinked against the glass. Ashley was pacing again. But this time, her eyes were locked on me. Explain. My father demanded. He didn't ask. He ordered. Where did it come from? Samantha, don't give me that investments vagueness. Money like that doesn't just appear. I told you, I said, leaning against the mantel. I kept my posture relaxed, deliberately contrasting their panic. The bulk of it came from a single transaction. Last year, a fake Guarneri del Gesù appeared on the market in Vienna. Everyone thought it was a 19th century copy. I knew it wasn't. I bought it for $40,000. I spent 8 months removing 2 centuries of bad varnish and documented the provenance. It authenticated. I sold it to a private collector in Tokyo for $12 million. And the rest, Ashley snapped. 12 is not 28. Bitcoin. I said simply. I bought a few $1,000s worth, back in 2013. I forgot about the wallet on an old hard drive until last month. I liquidated it. Ashley let out a bitter laugh. Luck. It's just dumb luck. I'm building a platform that changes how people interact with data. And you? You found a lottery ticket in a dusty violin case. It wasn't luck, Ashley. It was knowledge. I saw value where everyone else saw junk. That's my job. It doesn't matter how she got it. My mother interrupted. Stepping forward. Her voice was trembling, but her eyes were sharp. The point is, she has it. Thank God. She has it. She looked at my father. Robert. Tell her. My father took a long swallow of his scotch. He looked old suddenly. The confident patriarch who toasted to ambition just an hour ago was gone. In his place was a desperate man. Ashley is in trouble. Samantha, he said heavily. I figured. I said, is it the burn rate? Or did the new round of funding fall through? It's the SEC, Ashley whispered. She stopped pacing and slumped onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. They're investigating TechStream for revenue inflation. They froze our corporate accounts this morning. If I don't cover a $5 million shortfall in the operating budget by Monday, the auditors are going to flag it as fraud. I'll go to prison. Samantha. Federal prison. I stared at her. You cooked the books? I didn't, she cried. Looking up. I moved some numbers around. I recognized revenue early. Everyone does it. I just need to bridge the gap until the Series B closes. It's a bridge loan. That's all. A bridge loan. I repeated. $5 million. We need it. Samantha. My mother pleaded, reaching out to touch my arm. I flinched away. It's not just Ashley. It's us. What do you mean? It's you. My father looked at the floor. We leveraged everything, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. To keep TechStream afloat last year, we liquidated my retirement. We took a second mortgage on this house. We even borrowed against the life insurance policies. Here is the condensed version of the story, retaining all key plot points and emotional beats. My face went cold as my parents confessed they were broke. They had bet everything, the house, their reputation, their retirement on my sister Ashley's fraudulent business. Now that the golden child was sinking, they demanded I use my $28 million savings to bail them out. It's your duty. My father insisted. We're a family. But I realized the truth. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as an insurance policy. For 30 years, they ignored me while fueling Ashley's ego. Now, they wanted to liquidate me to cover their bad investment. No, I said firmly. I won't pay for your arrogance. When my father threatened to cut me off, claiming I'd be dead to them, I felt nothing but clarity. You have nothing left to give, I told him, grabbing the door handle. You're not cutting me off from the family fortune. Dad, I am the family fortune. I walked out and didn't look back. 3 months later, Ashley was indicted for fraud, and my parents lost the estate. Meanwhile, I used my money not for status, but for sovereignty. I launched a grant program for craftsmen and filled my workshop with apprentices, people who understood value, not just price. By the next Thanksgiving, I was hosting dinner in my workshop for my found family. A desperate letter from my mother arrived, asking to visit. I put it away in a drawer. I wasn't angry, just unavailable. Money can't buy love, but it buys the courage to walk away from those who hurt you. Raising a glass to the invisible ones. I finally felt something I never had in that mansion. I felt home.